Thank you everyone for being here at this April webinar, which is a Medicaid Update 2025. My name is Nicole Christensen. I am the CEO of Care Answered, providing patient advocacy and care coordination, getting healthcare done. I am also the founder of Answers for Care, which provides a village of senior care solutions, getting everything you need by vetted professionals. So we're very excited to have this webinar. It's requested every year, and we have some great presenters here from Answers for Care that have been doing this a very long time and have the information that you need to get started to understand Medicaid and to even better understand any changes or any questions. There are a million of them and it's constantly changing, but we hope to at least give you some highlights of what's going on with community Medicaid. So I am going to start. I'm going to let a few more folks in. Sorry about that. I'm going to start by introducing our great presenters. First up, we have Anne Dello Iacono. She is with the Dello Iacono Law Group. I've worked with Anne for many years. She is excellent and compassionate and wonderful and very smart. She is a graduate of the University of Michigan and Wayne State University Law School. She's the founding partner of the Dello Iacono Law Group, PC, with offices in East Northport, New York. She's been practicing in the fields of elder law and estate planning for 17 years. She has been elected by her peers as a super lawyer in the field of elder law for each of the past 11 years and as a top female attorney in New York. Awesome. And also focuses her practice on estate planning and elder law. She has an extensive substantive and procedural knowledge of matters concerning elder law, Medicaid, asset protection, planning, estate planning, probate, and estate administration. So I'm very happy to have her here. She is a member of the Care Answered family and the Answers for Care Village. And so without further ado, I'm going to let you start, Anne, and tell us about Medicaid.
Such a nice introduction. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna introduce myself and then disappear behind my slides, okay? So you guys can be wowed now by the fascinating world of Medicaid. That's right. That's me. And why is Medicaid so relevant? It's because long-term care is extremely expensive. And how are you going to pay for it? Because we all know Medicare is only going to cover so much. It's very short term. Don't get me wrong, it's wonderful, but it'll only get you so far. I have very few clients who can private pay, but I envy them. We deal quite a bit with people who have long-term care insurance, and I can tell you, in some situations, it actually makes the job harder to get benefits in place. With Medicaid, it may not cover everything. And so that's why we turn to Medicaid to see what they will cover. We live in a state where Medicaid will pay for care at home, certain assisted livings, and nursing home. But today we're only going to talk about home care. And in New York, I updated my numbers, everybody, but just so you know,
we don't see your slides yet.
Oh, cool. I'm just reading them. Okay. Did you guys want to see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Sorry. I'll hit the green share button. Okay. How's that? Is that more better?
Coming up, give it a second. Okay, there you go. And then start from the beginning. Meaning, right now we see the sides of your slide. Yeah, there you go.
There's like a lot of buttons at the top I was trying to hit. I wondered, I was like, I can't see myself. Okay. All right, see, this is what I was talking about. Long-term care is expensive. You don't have to take my word for it. Okay. All right, these are the numbers. How's that? So when people come to me and they say, I don't think I'll qualify for Medicaid, I own a home, I have money, I have too much in income, but I'm here begrudgingly to hear what you have to say, they're surprised to find out how easy it can be to qualify for Medicaid. So you can have, I always tell people around 30,000 in assets, plus certain other assets, like your IRAs. Medicaid doesn't make you get rid of those all at once, at least. Sometimes your primary residence is exempt. And for community Medicaid, you're allowed to have up to about $18.20 per month in income. But lucky me today, I'm going to let Pam explain the income portion to you for qualifying, and I'm just going to talk about the assets. Which sounds easy enough because if you have too much, can't you just give it away? And the answer is right now, yes, you can, but you really have to be smart about it. Okay. And it depends on your situation. So if you're married, we can transfer everything to your spouse and Medicaid will pay for your care. And there's never just, I love to throw this out as much as possible because it's confusing to people. If you transfer assets to your spouse or like a disabled child, even for nursing home, there's no penalty. Medicaid's okay with it. All right. And I know everyone calls me about monthly, maybe quarterly since 2020 and has asked me when the look back period for community Medicaid is starting. And that is, the answer is still TBD. We're not sure, but don't worry, everyone will be in a panic. You'll hear all about it when that does happen. All right, so like I said, we just give your money away and then you can qualify for Medicaid. We can move things to your spouse, of course, your disabled child. Do you want to give things if you're not married and you don't have a disabled child? Do you want to give things to your kids for them to hold on to? I'm not sure. It really depends on your situation and the amount of assets. And then what are they going to do with those assets? All right. Oh, we're not going to talk about a penalty period because guess what? We don't have to worry about that yet for community Medicaid. So if we give things to our spouse, keep in mind, Medicaid looks at a husband and wife as one unit. So it only works if the spouse agrees to sign this form called the spousal refusal. And we are very fortunate as New Yorkers to still have this available to us. A lot of states don't have this. So you can move everything to your spouse that's not applying for Medicaid. And that spouse will sign a form saying, look, I refuse to contribute my income and assets to my spouse's care because I might need it for myself one day. Medicaid says, fine, we won't look at what you have. We'll only focus on what the applicant has. So yeah, it's a wonderful tool. New Yorkers are not getting divorced for Medicaid purposes yet. Okay, so when we're talking about transferring assets, there's just a lot of do's and don'ts. People will call me and say, I don't know, I have all these annuities, so should I just close those all out and transfer it to my kid, or maybe to a trust? And I'm like, well, we really have to break some of this down. What kind of annuity is it? Is it a non-qualified annuity? Is it a qualified annuity? And even those of us who are still practicing and helping people can get tripped up by these things. So when we're talking about transferring assets, it's important to work with professionals. It's important that you're getting the right advice because you could wind up making a very costly mistake. You do not have to liquidate and transfer a qualified annuity. That means it's like an IRA. Okay. And that you can take monthly distributions from, and Medicaid won't touch the principal balance. The other thing I hear quite often is, well, can't I just give away, $19,000 a year? The IRS says I can, or per person per year. And the IRS and Medicaid don't really communicate. Medicaid doesn't care what the IRS allows. So we have to keep those things separate. Okay. The one thing that I'm asked about the most in my career in my day-to-day is about the trust. Because when you're talking about transferring assets, it's not always advisable to just transfer what you have into a third party's name. What if that person is arrested or gets sued or has a gambling problem, then your assets that you've worked hard for are tied up in their problems. And so we avoid potential issues like that by putting assets into a trust. And it really depends on your situation, of course. What's the best route? Everything is so unique. But typically, the irrevocable trust is a really good tool, as long as it's drafted properly. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, I can keep talking. I don't know what happened to my slide. When we're talking about transferring assets to the trust, we usually talk about the primary residence. When you put your primary residence into a trust, it does not change your life whatsoever. I always tell my clients you get the most bang for your buck out of this tool because you're still deemed the owner for income tax purposes. You still have to pay for everything. No one can kick you out of your house. No one can try to charge you rent. And your house is protected as a result. And one of the biggest benefits of using this great planning tool is that upon your death, your kids or your family or loved ones can immediately sell the house, distribute the money, and they don't have to go through probate. When we're planning, and sometimes people miss this when they're just processing the applications and not doing the whole planning portion and how do you divest your assets? One of the biggest things we're trying to do is also avoid probate when doing Medicaid planning. And does anyone know why? I know you're all muted, so that's a really unfair question. But the reason is
Tell us
the
what probate is too.
we're gonna do that. Yeah. First, I'm gonna tell you the reason though. The reason is that during the probate process, Medicaid can return as a creditor and be like, "Hi, remember us? Paid for your care during your lifetime, and now we want to be paid back." And what probate is it can be a painful process. It doesn't have to be. But if you die owning an asset, your name alone, no joint owner, no beneficiary, the only way for your loved ones to collect that asset is to go to court, prove they are the next of kin, or they're the people designated in the will to handle it. And then the court, after a while, will appoint them as executor and allow them to go forward. During this process, the whole world is kind of put on notice that you've passed and that someone has stepped in as representative of your estate, and all creditors can come forward, including Medicaid, and they will. So that is why when you're looking at what do I need to do to qualify for Medicaid, divest assets, add beneficiaries to what you're going to keep. And the reason we want beneficiaries to avoid probate. And what do we do with the house or any other real property? Keep in mind, yes, you can qualify for community Medicaid while you live in your house. However, is that good planning? No. Also, for a lot of my New York City residents, their basic homes are over the exempt value. So your house, you can't qualify with a primary residence that's $5 million. Medicaid is not going to pay for you. So that's when this trust comes into play again. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I talked about annuities. I apologize. I get asked that question about 4 times a day. What do I need to do? I do want to tell you that there is quite a bit of a difference when we're talking about surrendering an annuity, okay, or trying to spend it down over certain years, okay, because annuities are not just like a bank account where we can transfer the balance and there's really no consequence. It's like an insurance contract, and there's penalties and interest and all of that, and your deferred taxes all come due all at once. And it's just another double whammy kind of situation for people who need Medicaid. And in that context, people ask me, on top of all the income taxes, and I'm transferring all this money, do I owe gift tax? And I don't know if anyone's familiar. What I've found in my practice is that no one really knows much about gift tax. There is no New York State gift tax. So when clients are like, I can't transfer, I don't want to get hit with gift taxes, it's okay. It's going to be all right. As long as your gross estate at the end of your life is under that IRS like $12 million mark, we're not going to have to worry about gift tax. It's all wrapped into that one estate and gift tax number. Except for with the house. That's the only time I would say don't make a gift to a person. All right. And that's not gift tax, it's capital gains tax. Oh, sorry, there's people popping up. And that's the other tax I'm asked about. And I know this is really dry and boring, but my focus today is kind of on transferring assets. And there's all these considerations that we have to take into account so that people don't get crushed with taxes. You don't want to liquidate your IRA. Don't ever tell anyone to do that for Medicaid, okay? All of those people who help others. And you never want to say, just deed your house to your kids. With the IRA, you're going to have someone pay 50% in income taxes. And with the house, you're going to create a big capital gains problem. I love that we're nodding. You're like, yes, I know. This is probably, I know. Okay. So I think I've kind of hit all my big points here because I don't have to get bogged down in the income like Pam does.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay. In the context of Medicaid, we need to make sure we're doing things smart and wise. And my job as a lawyer is to make sure before someone goes down this road is to make sure we have the right documents in place. Do we have a good power of attorney? Do we need a trust? Is there a healthcare proxy in place? What assets should we move? What assets should we maybe talk about spending down, depending on the value? And who are we going to move these to? And who do we trust? And if we don't have anyone, who's going to run our trust for us? Okay. All right. I'm done. I'm going to let Pam take over from here.
Thank you very much, Anne. Does anybody have any questions? You could put it in the chat, or you can take yourself off mute and ask now. That was very helpful, Anne. Okay. So I am going to then now introduce Pam. So Pam Klagsbrun has a master's degree in gerontological, it's a word I'm having trouble saying clearly, services administration. She's a certified senior advisor and an elder law paralegal. She was the director for 6 years of innovative multi-service senior center with a medication management program, as well as an assistant director for 2 years, the Alzheimer's Resource Center, New York City Department for the Aging, and has been an elder law paralegal for 25 years. She founded Positive Planning Now, which is her company, in 2016, and it provides consultation with families to assess financial planning and care needs of older adults, prepares, files, and monitors Medicaid applications for community Medicaid and to secure nursing home Medicaid coverage, prepares, files, and sets up pooled trust to shelter surplus income, assesses the need for and coordinates referrals to other professionals or agencies as needed. And one of the things I also have the great benefit of working with Pam a lot for many years. But one of the things that we always say is we don't practice law without a license. So we often work with Anne and other excellent elder law attorneys, trust estates, as well as financial planners, because it's a team, right? We all, if we're fortunate enough, we have a team of people that we're working with to make sure that ourselves, our loved ones, our clients get the best care. So without further ado, I'll introduce Pam. Do you want to share your
Okay.
screen, Pam?
I'm gonna share my screen. Which one is it? This one. Okay. Let's see. Nope. I thought I
It's
had it.
coming.
Okay, that's me.
It's here. It's
Okay.
here.
First, I want to thank you for the wonderful introduction. And what I'm going to focus on today, Anne did a great job of giving us an overview. And yes, I am going to touch on income, but I want to talk about documentation requirements because very often clients are so stressed out when they're finally ready to apply for Medicaid that they're in scramble mode. And I mean, where am I going to get these documents? Why do you need all of this? Um, just overwhelming situation. And I just want to review the type of things that maybe you can either, if it's for you or a loved one or someone you're working with, say, why don't we just start a folder and throw these things in there at the beginning of the year? My favorite time to apply for Medicaid is January because everyone has year-end statements, they have Social Security award letters, they know what the new year is going to bring them financially, which is what Medicaid qualification is about primarily. So I just want to go through a number of things. Very often, one of the first questions I get is this Medicaid going to replace my insurance? And there are a lot of programs within Medicaid for different age groups, under 21, 21 to 64, people who are working. What we're talking about here is community Medicaid applications for long-term care services. And when I say long-term care services, I don't mean nursing home. I mean services that are for a population called DAB, which is disabled with Medicare, 65 and over, blind with Medicare. And the long-term services include a whole cadre of things, assisted living programs that will accept Medicaid for their care portion, the services that you can receive from a managed long-term care program, which I believe Nicole will expand on, personal care services, certain waiver programs. So there are 5 categories primarily for the documentation that's needed: residency, identity, citizenship, income, resources. So with residency, very often I'll get a call from someone who says, my loved one's in another state, they're very frail, they've recently gotten very ill, I need to bring them to New York. How long do they have to live here before I can apply? The answer is they can just get here. There is no time requirement for residency in the state of New York. Another reason why we're lucky here in New York with respect to Medicaid. So once you are situated here, the type of documentation to prove your residency would be government ID cards that have your address on it, like a driver's license, a rent receipt, a letter from your landlord, utility bills. And when all else fails, a non-window envelope that has been postmarked with your name and address will work. But I do not recommend using that as your first line of proving your residency. It is a last-ditch effort that will work. As far as identity, you can prove your identity and citizenship in one document with certain things. We hear everyone talking about the new Real ID, the new enhanced driver's license that comes into effect May 7th. If you do have one, and I can't get an appointment to save my life till September is what I'm seeing, but you can use your passport book, your passport card. If you're a naturalized citizen, that certificate and the enhanced driver's or non-driver's license can prove both identity and citizenship and can be included with the application. Other forms of identity are other photo IDs, permanent resident cards, or a passport from a foreign country, or just a regular driver's license. Citizenship. We all know citizens are people who are born here. They can be naturalized. A birth certificate is the most common form of documentation. And that's the one thing I hear people do. I have to go scrambling. It's just always good. Just have a file set up if you're worried that maybe in the next year, I'm going to have to look into this Medicaid program and see what's what. Just keep your important documents together. A lot of people keep them in little strong boxes. I don't know that that's the best way to keep them, but at least know where they are, know where your loved ones keep them. Income. Okay. So the type of income that has to be verified for this population is Social Security, pension, interest and dividends that you get on bank accounts or other financial instruments, your retirement accounts, as Ann said, if they're in payout status, they are exempt. Contributions and payments from other family members. If your family is giving you money every month to help with your bills, that's going to be looked at as an income stream. Maybe sometimes they can pay a bill for you and not give you $500 a month. That is a pattern that will look like an income stream. If you get rent from an apartment in your own home or in another property, which is a whole other story. If you're working part-time, you can show proof of your salary, excuse me. And workman's compensation payments are not exempt. I'm going to expand on income in just a minute. But there are expense items, while not always offsetting your income as far as your Medicaid budget, there are expenses that need to be included with an application. So as I mentioned, in January, you get new information. So that's when you get your Social Security award letter. It's also probably when you'll find out if your medical premiums have changed for your Medicare supplemental insurance, for your prescription drug plan. Those are items that are important. People say to me, well, if you look in my bank statement, you can see it just comes out online. I pay it every month. Medicaid is living in the dark ages. They could care less about online payments. They can look at a statement, see the same amount coming out and saying, maybe that person's in arrears with their supplemental policy, and this is a payment plan. You have to verify what your premium is. Utility notices, property taxes, homeowners insurance. As I said, very important to note that online payments do require verification. Now, what happens if your income is above the Medicaid allowance, which we went over is $1,800 and a $20 disregard. So we'll talk about a single individual, $1,820 a month. And on top of that, you can keep, they will budget for you to pay that medical premium, your Medicare supplemental insurance, your prescription drug plan. Anything above that is considered surplus income. Medicaid says that's all well and good, but you need to spend that money down, the surplus amount, the amount over the $1,820 and the medical premium. You need to spend that amount on medical needs during the month before your Medicaid is active in that month. That's difficult for a lot of people. What you can do, and what is a wonderful program allowed to this population, it allows people with disabilities and older adults seeking Medicaid home care and other community-based services. You can shelter your surplus income in what's called a pooled income trust, Community Trust 2. It's a pooled supplemental needs trust. These are trusts that you don't have to go to an attorney to have drafted. These trusts are administered by various nonprofit organizations throughout the state. And why is it called a pool trust? Everybody asks me that. It's because there is a pool of Medicaid recipients all sending their surplus income amounts each month to this trust. And then a sub-account is carved out in your name. You can look, you won't get monthly statements, but you can look online and look at the Jane Doe monthly account. You'll see your money, the debit is going in. We usually arrange for a direct debit to come out of your bank account from the trust when your income clears. If your Social Security clears, let's say the 3rd of every month, and your pension goes in the 1st of the month, then I think it's reasonable we can say to the trust, on the 5th of the month, you know, accounting for weekends and holidays, take the direct debit of whatever my amount is of surplus and deposit it into my pool trust account. And then what's wonderful is you can use that money to pay for living expenses. You can pay your rent, utility bills, food, clothing, credit card bills, anything that's for the benefit of the beneficiary. You can also use it if you don't get the number of home care hours that you hoped for. You can use it to pay for additional home care services. You cannot use it for anything that duplicates what Medicaid is paying for. You can't use it for alcohol, bail, or firearms. Hopefully that is not a problem for anyone. So that is in essence how the pool trust works. But keep in mind, it's not just that surplus that's available to you. It's the 1820 plus the medical premiums that are in your individual account that's available to you. So it's really just such a wonderful program that we are allowed to use for this population. Now, how do you get this pool trust approved? Well, you have certain paperwork that has to be filed with the nonprofit organization to establish your account. But then on top of that, there are documents that often come as a surprise to applicants. And this is what is involved in it. What happens is you file this application, this cumbersome application with medical and financial information to Medicaid, but it is passed on to the New York State Department of Health. And what they do is they will confirm this person is disabled, and therefore we're going to communicate with the Medicaid agency. We're going to tell them, we approve this person to have a pool trust. Please take their surplus income in their budget and make it a 0, because we are allowing them to fund their pool trust with that surplus. The way this gets approved is there's a form for someone's physician, nurse practitioner, or physician's assistant to complete, which confirms a diagnosis, limitations of the person's ability to perform their daily activities. Often it's not their primary physician. Maybe they see their neurologist more or their cardiologist more, and they're more familiar with how to describe their impairment. So that's one item. There's a disability review that gets a little more in depth into diagnoses, medications, and more description of how their disabilities impact their daily living. They need help with transferring, bathing, dressing. They need medication reminders. They need hands-on assistance to ambulate. HIPAA form needs to be included because the New York State Department of Health may want to get additional information, and the past year of medical records. What's involved in that would be ask the physician that's most familiar with you to give you copies of lab reports. If you've been to the hospital during the year, keep that discharge report, throw them in a folder. Just anything that happens to you medically during the year, throw into a folder. At the end of the year, if you don't want to keep it, get rid of it. But if you needed a pool trust at the end of that year, it's all there. I have people who are dealing with doctors that tell them, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. And in the meantime, this just hangs in the air and it's holding them back. So a lot of times also there are portals now that you can log on to and print from. So those items plus verification that the person has enrolled in the pool trust, it's called a joinder agreement when you join the trust, and verification that they're funding it each month. A verification of deposits is what's included in that application process. And then the last item that you have to submit with the application is resources. As Ann mentioned, family size of 1, $32,396. there are exempt assets, there are non-exempt assets. Even though some are exempt, you still have to provide the documentation. Your home with an equity value less than $1,097,000, and that's net of a mortgage, any other encumbrances. Your car is exempt, an irrevocable burial trust is exempt. It's a great way to spend down money. I recently, this was so funny, I had a client tell me, because I said to her that the irrevocable pre-need agreement, you're allowed to do that not only for yourself or your spouse, you can do that for your children, and you can do it for your children's spouses under the administrative directive that was handed down on this. And she said she was going to get one for her son-in-law for a Christmas present to see how he would react. I I just kept my mouth shut on that one. As far as non-exempt assets, we're talking about bank accounts, life insurance. You're allowed to have a life insurance policy that has a cash value of $1,500 for a non-countable resource. Anything over, you have to verify the cash value. If the life insurance policy is on the applicant's life, but someone else owns it, well, then it's not countable because they don't have a vested interest. They can't cash it out. Stocks and bonds, savings bonds. Another one that surprises people is a 529 account, a college fund. If you set one up for a grandchild, that's your money. You can close that out at any time. Effective in 2023, federal law now requires that all people applying in this category, the age blind and disabled, have to sign a form that is allowing the asset verification system in New York to actually look to see if they have disclosed all bank accounts and real property. So again, common forms of documentation, bank statements, brokerage statements, interest and dividend statements, IRAs, verification of your distribution, a copy of a deed, verifying cash value of life insurance, and verification of any burial plans that you have made. And that, I think, sums up the documentation necessary. I guess my main point is that it's very hard for all of us who work with clients to see people who are so stressed out about a loved one needing care at home to then be so frustrated because they're waiting for a document in the mail or they don't know where it is. And so just to be aware of where things are and where you can put your hands on them. And it's not easy to discuss financial information with individuals. Sometimes they don't want to disclose it to other family members, but to the extent that you can, it's very helpful when the time comes. And that's all I've got. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have any questions? You want to put in the chat? There was another question too for you, Anne. I'm sorry. Is somebody speaking?
I had a question.
Okay.
Thank you, first of all, for setting this up. Very informative. My question related to the resources. I see that there is an amount, family size of 1 and a family size of 2. I believe that refers to the income that they may be earning, and that is specific as it relates to like income qualifications for Medicaid. Is that correct?
Correct.
Anne, you want to take that?
That's right. So I believe, I don't know if you caught that part where I said, look, if you're married, they'll look at you as a single unit. So if both people are applying for Medicaid, and that happens often, then those figures apply. But if only one household member is applying, then you use the figure for one individual.
I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying. I think I joined a little bit late, so I might have missed that.
Does that make sense?
The other question I had was the homestead with equity value. How is that determined based on whether like it might be a couple and one person may be in need of care and is
Mhm.
trying to qualify for Medicaid. And the value may or may not be greater than that $1,097,000.
Mm. It's kind of interesting because in my experience, I've had Medicaid accept a whole host of things to prove the value without actually getting a formal appraisal. I pulled out a property tax bill, and you know that assessed value is usually quite low
Wow.
compared to the fair market value, and they've accepted that.
Yeah.
I had a Medicaid worker pull the value off of Zillow online and send it to me and said, that's the value I'm using.
Mhm.
So, you know, the only real official way would, you know, that there's no room for argument would be like an appraisal, but it's gonna, you know, Medicaid can be very, it can also really depend on whose desk that application lands on, right?
Yeah, very
And
true.
Greg, I think the other thing that you mentioned is if there's a well spouse or only one person's using it. So you might have missed it, but Anne talked about spousal refusal as well. So that may be a part of it as well.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
So
you. I'll look into that. Appreciate it.
absolutely. And
Thank you.
this will be recorded so everybody can have, and there, you know, Pam and Anne and I are here to discuss when it's specific offline, but that's what we're here for.
I think someone
So,
had a very good question.
okay,
I think it was meant to be specific, but I get asked this quite a bit and I would love to share if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
But people often ask me like, look, I really don't want to put my house into the trust. Can I do something called a life estate deed? And that is a way to deed the house over to your kids and retain, you know, the right to live there during your lifetime. And it's very similar to the rights you would get in the trust. Okay. And it's a very similar arrangement. And then upon your death, the child would inherit the property. And we don't have a capital gains issue. And all of that is super great and wonderful, except if the house is sold during your lifetime, there could definitely be a capital gains issue because you've deeded the house to the kid. If it's not their primary residence, they get the bulk of the money upon sale and they can get hit with capital gains. And so the life estate has a lot of holes in it that the trust kind of plugs. Okay, so in very limited circumstances, does that actually work? But it's good to like go, you know, that's worth a phone call. If you are interested in talking about, you know, one or the other and how it would apply to your situation, we kind of have to like flesh that out. But I do like to throw that out there to people because they'll ask me quite a bit why I didn't recommend a life estate deed.
excellent. So I am going to, again, Nicole Christensen back. I'm going to go through a little bit about the other side of community Medicaid, which is not the financial approval, but the medical approval and what that means right now. So hopefully you can see my slides. And so just basically, I'm going to try to do quick and good in a little in a limited time. But so community medical eligibility is done after financial eligibility. So after all that stuff is in, you cleared that hurdle, woohoo! We talk about okay, medical need. So the general rule is that you must need at least 120 days of assistance with activities of daily living to enroll into a managed long-term care plan. There is an immediate need process, which in theory goes faster depending on what county or borough you live in. It doesn't necessarily go faster. I would say from my experience in the 5 boroughs of New York City, it does not go faster. But that's, I think, everybody's experience. But with Nassau and Suffolk, it seems to actually work most of the time. So immediate need, the process is supposed to be 12 calendar days of receipt from the local Department of Social Services to authorize hours. There's an authorization form needed. So what I mean by that is if you are a loved one, say it's your parent that is going to be evaluated for medical approval for community Medicaid, and they don't need another hassle or they can't do it, there's an authorization form that needs to be filled out so that you yourself, the loved one, can set up these assessments and make it go more smoothly. The New York State Independent Assessor assessments determine if one is medically approved for community Medicaid. So there are people, not any of that work with me, but there are folks that have come to me afterwards that had done all the financial, but did not get approved medically. So you can imagine of going through all of that and then not getting the hours of care. So that is happening, unfortunately, because this program, as you probably picked up on with what Anne and Pam were saying, it's not intuitive. It's not, look at him. Of course he needs help. That's not how they look at it. And I view it as medical approval needs as much proof as financial approval. Maybe not as much, but you definitely need to prove what you're saying. The managed long-term care plan, which is kind of the insurance, they under Medicaid. So think of it as like if you have a regular insurance plan, so then you pick a MLTC, which is the insurance, and you can only use the providers, the home care agencies, et cetera, that are contracted with them. They do their own evaluation. There's several MLTCs to choose from, but it is heavily based on the hours of care that they then approve you for. It's heavily based on those NYIA assessments. So it's really important to say the right things, have the appropriate proof. At this day and time, I'm gonna say it, and it's not to toot my own horn in any way, shape, or form. If you do not have an advocate with you, it can be really detrimental. Again, people that don't have, those are the ones that are contacting me and saying, oh my gosh, I was not even medically approved, or I got approved for 1 hour a week. So that's just the way it is right now, sadly, but it is the case. So there are 2 assessments done by the New York Independent Assessors. They both should be completed within 14 days of scheduling. The community health assessment is done by a nurse. It can take up to 3 hours. You can have it in person or just like this via Zoom. Then there's a clinical assessment done by an independent clinician. So that could be a physician assistant, a nurse practitioner, a doctor, and they potentially help determine the hours in theory. So that assessment takes generally less than an hour. Again, none of these are actual physical. Nobody's taking your blood pressure or anything like that. They are asking a number of questions. If hours are more than 12, meaning you would like more than 12 hours, or it's determined that one would need more than 12 hours of care, it goes to an independent panel who then determines if it is safe for a person to remain in the community. Now, that sounds crazy probably to you. I know it does to me, that somebody else is going to determine whether I can stay in my home when that's what I want to do. And there's lots of legal issues and cases coming into court, but that's how it is put right now. So I've never seen this independent panel. They are mysterious to me, but they can say, okay, you need more assistance than can be provided at home. That's another thing that's, again, not intuitive. It's good to have somebody with you. Okay, so I mentioned these activities of daily living. So if you can see my screen, you'll see yes and not yet when. So kind of like the 2.5-year look back, it's the same kind of thing. We don't know when the second half is going to happen or if it's going to happen. But right now, the activities of daily living that is really focused on is ambulating or walking, personal hygiene, dressing, eating, bathing, transferring. Transferring is getting standing up from a sitting position or sitting down from a standing position, or turning or positioning in bed. And what that means is I can go to the right, but if I have to move to the left, I need somebody to assist me, or I can do it by myself. So these are the things that you might need help with. Those are the activities of daily living that they really focus on. Again, they do not focus on safety and supervision. They do not focus on safety and supervision. And what that means is, oh, but he could fall, but she could fall, but she can't be left alone. Anyone can see that. That is not what they focus on at all. They will be really heavily focused and concentrated on those activities of daily living that they need physical human assistance with. What is apparently going to be in the future is to require physical maneuvering with at least 3 of these ADLs. And for those with dementia diagnosis, a minimum of supervision with at least 2 of these ADLs. So that's coming or not, we don't know. But right now we're talking about the ones that I mentioned. The assessment is really the MLTCs are pretty much taken out, although they kind of seem like they have more pull now. But as I said, the assessments done by NIA are really what they're heavily relied upon when the MLTCs determine the number of hours. Primary physician is pretty much taken out of determining those hours or your care needs. That independent doctor that I mentioned before, who unfortunately may have no really understanding of the patient because they basically saw them for 45 minutes and read the notes from the nurse's assessment, is pretty much what you have. However, there is a form that can allow your regular doctor to have more input.
Nicole, your
Yes.
slides aren't turning, by the way.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so here we go. Okay. So, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, everyone, that you didn't see that. It was moving on my screen, but not on yours. I sorry about that. So there we go with so dual eligibility. You might have heard this. People ask about it a lot. That's when you have Medicare and Medicaid together. So as Pam had mentioned before, and I think Anne as well, community Medicaid is for care in the home. It doesn't replace your insurance that you go to the doctor with. But there are dual eligibility programs in which Medicare and Medicaid are put together. And so one of those is called PACE, where there's a medical adult daycare where all services are provided on site. You don't live there, you go home, but you spend most of your day there during the day. And then there's MAP, which is Medicare Advantage Plus. Again, it's like what we call a Medicare Advantage plan, but it's Medicare and Medicaid. So whatever insurance provider that is, your home care comes under that, as well as now your doctor coverage comes under that. Okay, let's see. See if I can move my slides along again. Consumer-directed personal assistance program. That will be another webinar, but I do have a blog about it, and I've put up another one, and I'll do another one. So consumer-directed personal assistance program, for any of those of you who have used it or using it or looking to use it, that's when you can have someone paid via Medicaid to provide the home care. And a consumer-directed personal assistance program, they can do things that potentially a home care agency couldn't do. So if they have to check their blood sugar levels and then have to administer insulin, a regular home care aide can't do that. So sometimes if you have a loved one or somebody somebody that you've worked with, and you can utilize them through CDPAP, they could do those things in theory. Now we had about 700 fiscal intermediaries. Those are basically how the aide or the caregiver would get paid. We used to have about 700, and we have one now. So that started April 1st, really. So it's a little convoluted right now. So if you do have CDPAP, please contact PPL. That's the one fiscal intermediary we have now. And it'll be hard to get on the phone. I did hear this little secret that to go through the Spanish line, see if you can get there that way. But it's very convoluted. I don't think it was really well thought out how they were going to put this into place. So there are some folks that are just not getting paid, or they're losing them because they were getting paid and now they're doing the same work and not getting paid because they're not on this new signed up with this new fiscal intermediary, which is PPL. So the other thing that I have here is the MLTC lockdown. So this happened in 2020. So if you had an MLTC, which I called the community Medicaid kind of insurance, that gave you your number of hours or approved your number of hours, and say month 2, you're like, I'm not liking this. I'm not liking this selection that I made of an MLTC. You can change your MLTC for 90 days. After that 90 days, you are locked in. I will say, you can, if you have good cause, and good cause is like really good cause. Not, I don't like them. They apparently they will also listen to the reason, and potentially you'll be able to move. Obviously, if it closes, that's good cause, right? But that's the case for changing MLTCs. Please note that when an MLTC is one thing, it's kind of like if you don't like your doctor, as a patient advocate, like if they're not listening to you, if you don't feel like you're being heard, then switch your doctor, but you don't switch your insurance company, right? So the same thing, if you're having issue with an aide or even an home care agency, it might not be time to change your MLTC. However, it's the MLTC not doing what it's supposed to, and you're not able to get in touch with them, and they're not providing the services appropriately, then maybe it's a good time to switch. Let's see. I keep going to the wrong screen. Sorry about that. Again, speak to an elder law attorney now to plan appropriately. As Anne was saying, it's a full plan, it's a team. So having these discussions and planning ahead is so very important. And or work with a Medicaid specialist like Pam to apply for community Medicaid, or in her case, nursing home Medicaid as well. There are waiver programs, the Nursing Home Transition and Diversion Waiver Program, the Traumatic Brain Injury Waiver Programs that are part of Community Medicaid that we can also help you apply for and refer to get services, and get an advocate to access the best care you need. And we'll be continuing to put up updates so you can ask about that. So there is my contact information. I saw that there was some questions. I'm sorry, I definitely did the New Yorker talk fast. Sorry about that. Stop my share. Okay, so let me see. The additional hours for home care, can it be paid out of a pooled trust if you're paying someone privately and not through an agency? That's going to depend. I'll have Pam talk about that as well. That's
Yeah.
going to depend on the pooled trust company sometimes, and just having your records in order. But Pam, if you could speak to that too.
Yeah, that's sticky because it does have to be, and I agree with Nicole, there are agencies that run pool trust that I believe would pay, but you need an official invoice. So, a private person can't really give that. That's a tough one. that's a tough one. I don't know that that would be approved. Because the pool trusts are carefully audited by the state and, you know, they should be using the money in the accounts and allowing the beneficiaries to use them in a way that's in accordance with the trust principles. So I don't know is the answer. I could look into that.
Yeah, I've had experience in which they were able to do it as long as there were receipts. But again, as I
Mhm.
say, a team, that could have tax repercussions for
Yeah.
somebody and along the way, even if it's
Mhm.
not the, you know, who knows? It's good. Everybody is different. I don't mean to say who knows, but it's everybody is different. So if you were looking for a trust company, if you were working with someone like um, Pam or myself or Anne, you might want to ask, hey, let's talk to this trust company beforehand to see what they can do.
Mhm.
Susan, I know you have more questions in regarding to the house. And I would definitely recommend that you speak with Anne, contact her and see if she can't answer some of those questions. Because unfortunately with Medicaid, the more you know, the more questions you have. And that's not just you, it's everybody. So we are here to answer those questions. And again, I'm sorry about my slide, everybody. Hopefully you caught up in my Fast and Furious redo. But any other quick questions? I know we've kept you over an hour. We tried to cover a lot. All right. Well, then with that, I will say have a wonderful day and thank you so much for being here. This has been recorded, so you will have access to it probably by next week. I'll send it out. But again, we're here for you. You can find all three of us on answersforcare.com. That's a number 4, Answers for Care. And you can see from their information, so you can reach out directly to any of us. Thanks, everyone.